Let me ask you a question. Have you ever received your salary, checked your bank account a week later, and wondered, where did all my money go? And if your salary doubled tomorrow, would your life genuinely improve? Or would your spending simply increase until you were waiting for the next paycheck again? This is the story of Michael, a supermarket worker who believed his small salary was the reason he could never build a better life. But one painful moment forced him to confront the truth. Michael was 24 years old and lived in a quiet little town. Every morning, he woke up early, put on his supermarket uniform, and walked nearly 40 minutes to work. He arranged products on shelves, carried heavy boxes, cleaned aisles, and helped customers from morning until evening. By the time he returned home, his legs hurt, his back ached, and his clothes were soaked with sweat. Despite all that work, his salary was barely enough to survive. Michael rented a tiny room with a leaking roof. His mattress lay directly on the floor, and the old fan in the corner barely worked. Some nights, he skipped dinner because he needed to save enough money to get to work the next morning. But Michael's salary wasn't his only problem. Every payday, something strange happened. The moment his salary entered his account, Michael suddenly felt rich. His friends would call him and say, "Michael, we're going out tonight. Come on, you only live once." And Michael always joined them. They went to clubs, ordered expensive food, and bought drinks they couldn't really afford. Michael sometimes purchased new shoes or clothes simply because he didn't want anyone to think he was poor. For a few hours, he felt successful. But within 1 week, the feeling disappeared. His wallet was empty. His bank account was empty. Even his kitchen was empty. Then he would begin counting the days until his next salary. Payday, spending, regret, waiting. The same cycle repeated every month. One afternoon, while Michael was walking home from work, he passed a small restaurant. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air, and his stomach growled. He checked his pocket. He had just enough money left to buy a loaf of bread. Michael stood outside the restaurant, watching other people enjoy their meals. Then he lowered his head and quietly walked away. That night, lying on his mattress, he stared at the ceiling and whispered, "I work every single day. Why does my life never change?" A few weeks later, Michael witnessed something that changed him forever. He was walking through his neighborhood when he heard shouting outside a rented house. An angry landlord stood near the gate. In front of him was a frightened man, his wife, and their young daughter. 2 small bags containing their belongings sat beside them. The landlord shouted, "You work every day, so where's my rent?" The tenant lowered his head. "I'll pay next month." The landlord shook his head. "You say that every month. You work, but you never plan. If you cannot pay, leave my house." The man's wife began crying. Their little daughter held tightly to her dress. Michael stood frozen on the other side of the road. Those words felt as though they had been spoken directly to him. You work, but you never plan. Michael looked at the family and imagined himself standing in the same place one day. For the first time, he understood something uncomfortable. His salary was small, but it wasn't the only reason he remained poor. His habits were keeping him trapped. The following morning, Michael visited the town library. As he walked between the shelves, one book caught his attention. Its title was How to Build Wealth on a Small Income. Michael borrowed it and began reading that night. The first chapter didn't promise a secret investment or a way to become rich overnight. Instead, it contained one simple sentence. A small salary is not your biggest problem. A lack of a plan is. Michael stopped reading. That sentence described his entire life. When his next payday arrived, his friends called him. "Michael, we're going out. Are you coming?" Michael looked at the money in his account and said, "No, I'm staying home tonight." His friends laughed. "What happened to you?" Michael smiled and replied, "I don't want my future to disappear in one weekend." That evening, he cooked a simple meal at home. Then he opened a small notebook and gave every part of his salary a purpose. Rent, food, transport, savings. And only after those things were covered could he spend anything on entertainment. For the first time, Michael controlled his salary instead of allowing his salary to control him. The changes weren't dramatic. He didn't become rich in a month. Some days, he wanted to return to his old lifestyle. Sometimes he saw expensive shoes and wanted to buy them simply to impress people. But then he remembered the family standing outside their home with nowhere to go. So he walked away. Every payday, Michael followed the same routine. He paid his rent first. He bought only what he needed. He cooked most of his meals at home. And before spending on anything unnecessary, he saved a small amount. At first, his savings looked almost meaningless. But Michael had learned another valuable lesson. Never laugh at small savings. One day, they may become a big opportunity. Months passed, then an entire year. For the first time in his life, Michael reached the end of a month with money still in his account. He wasn't wealthy, but he finally felt something he had never experienced before. Control. His friends continued celebrating every payday and borrowing money before the month ended. One evening, they invited him out again. "You've changed," they told him. "You don't enjoy life anymore." Michael smiled. "I still enjoy life. I just enjoy sleeping peacefully, knowing tomorrow's bills are already paid." Michael didn't stop there. He began reading about personal finance, business, discipline, and investing. He still worked at the supermarket during the day, but at night he studied and planned. Eventually, he started a small side business. It wasn't glamorous, and it didn't make much money at first. There were months when Michael wondered whether it was worth continuing, but he refused to return to a life of waiting desperately for payday. Slowly, his business grew. His savings eventually became enough for the deposit on a small piece of land. Years later, Michael built a modest rental house on it. The rent from that property helped him save for another. He never rushed, and he never borrowed money to impress people. He built his life slowly, carefully, and patiently. Eventually, Michael built a home of his own. On the day he received the keys, he stood alone inside the empty living room. He remembered the nights he had gone to bed hungry. He remembered spending an entire month's salary in a single week. And he remembered believing his life would never change. Years later, people no longer knew Michael only as the supermarket worker. They knew him as an honest businessman and a kind landlord who never forgot what financial struggle felt like. Michael's salary didn't change first. His habits did. He stopped trying to look rich and started working toward financial security. That is the lesson of his story. Earning more money can help, but a bigger salary cannot fix uncontrolled spending. If you have no plan for a small income, you probably won't have a plan for a larger one either. Wealth is rarely created by one dramatic decision. It is built one choice at a time, one saved dollar at a time, and one disciplined habit at a time. You don't need to earn millions before you begin changing your future. You need to take responsibility for the money already passing through your hands. A salary may support you for 1 month, but financial wisdom can protect you for a lifetime. So when your next paycheck arrives, what will happen to it? Will it disappear like all the others? Or will it become the first brick in a different future? Tell me in the comments. What is one financial habit you're going to change starting today? If this story gave you something to think about, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.